Watching this Scrambler craze has really been exciting. This isn't a flash in the pan. I think it's been going on far too long to call this just a craze that is going to fade into modern history. And it's led me to this point where I'm starting to ask the question, should you be considering one in your list of adventure bikes when you're going for your next off-road machine? I think there's a legitimate case for you to consider it. Let's get into why the Scrambler is starting to make a very strong case for being a great alternative to the standard adventure bike. Let's get into the bad straight out of the gate, because that's what people are going to lock into here, is the impracticality of the Scrambler. Put on the glasses to get into character. Well, Solid, Scramblers are completely impractical for the off-road. They're entirely an aesthetic venture and have no place in the dirt. Sure, that's how the criticism is going to come across from the keyboard warriors on the internet. So Scramblers are the OG off-road motorcycle. Back in the day, they used to take road bikes with absolutely no off-road modifications and take them off-road. They started calling what they would do scrambles, where they'd race each other, and suddenly people were taking bits off their bike, adding stuff to make them a little more off-road capable. They are the very first motorcycle for riding off-road. So they're the granddaddy of your shiny BMW 1250 GS.
I am your father.
But there are a few downsides to using a Scrambler as your adventure bike. So let's get into those now. Poor storage is a big one, and a criticism I see aimed at Scramblers when people are thinking about them for an adventure bike quite often. And it's a little bit misdirecting. What you mean to say is it has poor storage for your storage needs. If you run mean and lean and you're good at packing light, you follow ultralight hikers and how they do things, you can pack your life down into a very, very small package. I can easily fit a multi-day trip on my tiny little dual sport. You should have no problems with all the amazing soft luggage options out there to do the same on a Scrambler. If you need a lot of space and a lot of room, or you feel you need to lock your luggage in hard panniers for security reasons, then yes, a Scrambler is going to be flawed for you. But if you're okay with that, you're happy with soft luggage, you can run mean and lean with your packing options, then it's not going to be a problem. Fuel capacity is a big one. There's no way around that really, because if you change it out for an aftermarket tank, which you'd be struggling to find, if not non-existent, then you ruin the beautiful aesthetics of the bike anyway. So you are stuck with a small tank that looks fantastic, but doesn't get you very far. But you should also think of this as an advantage as well. While it might not be great at the super remote riding because of its tiny fuel tank, doing the general weekend warrior stuff or multi-day trip within civilization, getting off your bike regularly to fill up is really going to help you out, because I do that anyway when I'm doing big long trips. You get off the bike regularly, that keeps you alert, keeps the blood circulation going, and it also means you might be able to feel your ass again after that painful hour on the seat. Comfort's another one. These Scramblers are stripped down. They're not built to be super comfortable, although I do find them not too bad. That's because I ride dual sports, which are even more uncomfortable. So when I hop on a Scrambler, I think, oh wow, this is fantastic. So smooth and comfy, and this seat is great. But if you're coming from a 1250 GS or a big Tiger 1200, there's no wind protection. The seat certainly isn't as good. Where are all my electronic creature comforts? Where's my heated seat? All these things that make you super comfortable. So it all depends on where you're coming from. This one here is what holds me back from getting a Scrambler myself, the fear of ruining the thing. I'm just not masochistic enough to take my beautiful pride and joy off-road and completely obliterate it, given how much I drop my bike when I'm riding off-roads. I'd always be worried about dropping it. It would stop me from taking it on some tougher terrain. It would really limit what I'd do. Honestly, if I had a Scrambler, I'd probably just be sticking to dirt roads, not off-road ridings. But I know not everyone feels that way. I know there's a lot of guys out there, some of you do have Scramblers and take them properly off-road and don't have any qualms with really riding them hard. Can your wallet and can your pride take all those crashes off-road? There's also a lot to love about the Scrambler. There's a lot of advantages that the Scrambler has that just aren't offered to you from adventure bikes, dual sports, enduro bikes, or basically anything else in the off-road category. So let's get into why you might consider a Scrambler as your next adventure bike. I think the big one, which is purely subjective, I admit, it's aesthetics, the looks of the bike. Scramblers, to me, a lot of them look fantastic. All the detail and the beautifully machined parts and just the little teardrop tanks, they look amazing. So they not only look good, but they sound fantastic. The whole aesthetic of the bike really pops. And it's a kind of bike that you can roll up to the cafe, to the shops, to the pub, and really be proud of. Suddenly you've got a swarm of old blokes swarming around you like a pensionary eclipse. They do garner a lot of attention, and that's something that is often missed from adventure bikes and dual sports. The adventure bike looks great in its purposefulness, but they all look kind of same. Some of you might say, Solid, that's a little shallow. Bikes need to be utilitarian, they're a tool for a purpose. And yes, I agree to a point. You cannot deny that riding a bike is a visceral and emotional experience as well. And if you don't emotionally connect to the sound and the look of the bike, it just isn't quite as good of an experience. So that is a massive advantage, I think, and it's definitely a big reason why you might consider a scrambler over an adventure bike. The other advantage I see is you kind of have two bikes in one here, a Jekyll and Hyde if you would. While adventure bikes can be ridden in many different applications, they're always going to look the way they look. You're always going to be the adventure bike rider, or you're always going to be the dual sport rider wherever you pull up. Whereas with a scrambler, you can on Saturday go for an off-road ride, dress in all your adventure gear and really have an amazing time exploring the dirt. And then on the Sunday, you can change all your kit into your retro cafe racer stuff and cruise down the cafe strip with the rest of your retro mates and have a completely different style of riding and fit in just as much. I think that duality of a scrambler and its ability to ride in different kinds of categories and have completely different looks is a fantastic option for someone that might not be able to afford two different kinds of bikes. You love the pantomime of dressing up in all that retro stuff. You also love the dirt. This is going to be a great option for you. A very specific kind of person, admittedly, but it is nice to have a bike that can just slot into different kinds of ridings with completely different kinds of looks, so you don't always have to be pigeonholed into one type of rider. The third benefit I see of the Scrambler is it's just a bit different. I'm sure a lot of you feel this as well when you're looking for a new bike and you look at adventure bikes or you look at dual sports. Sometimes it can just feel a bit same. So what the hell do you do if you're wanting to stand out a bit, have something a little bit different? You are definitely going to stand out in that situation, and it's really going to be something different and interesting, and it's going to strike up conversation, and it's going to mean you're going to have to be creative about your choices when you're riding off-road, and all that stuff can really be invigorating, a new challenge, so it can be a breath of fresh air. I think the fourth one here is probably something that isn't talked about too much because we don't like talking about the people who don't quite make it into the off-road arena. Those people that get an off-road bike, they hate the experience, and for whatever reason they get rid of their off-road machine, they chalk it all up to a mistake. A Scrambler really gives you flexibility there because you're not committing entirely to an off-road machine like you would be with an adventure bike or with a dual sport. When you buy those machines, you are saying to the world, I like riding off-road, and whether you do or you don't, the entire look is crafted around that application. Whereas with a Scrambler, if it turns out that you don't like off-road riding for whatever reason, you've still got a bike that is perfect for street use, and you don't have to feel bad about never taking it off-road. So that I think is a real advantage that I don't hear spoken about too much. Because if you've got a dual sport or an adventure bike and you decide you don't like off-road riding, every time you look at it, you're just going to be reminded of your failure or your dislike of riding off-road, and you're slowly going to resent or drift away from that bike and its purpose of being an off-road motorcycle. Whereas the Scrambler, you can continue on with your life and never give it a second thought. And if you do eventually come back to the idea of riding off-road, it can do it, and it's still there for you. The other real benefit now is just how far Scramblers have come. When they first started coming out in the modern era, there really wasn't too much thought put towards actually going off-road. They just made them look like they could go off-roads. Tall bars, high pipe, job done, throw some knobbies on, and Bob's your uncle, you had a Scrambler. Whereas nowadays, with the market getting more and more competitive and manufacturers realizing that this isn't a flash in the pan, this is a legitimate category that's sticking around, you're seeing more and more off-road capable machines. Look at Triumph's top of the line Scrambler 1200, heaps of travel, serious suspension, ready to rock off-road and very capable. Ducati's Desert Sleds, they're top of the line. The Fantic Caballero Rally, these are Scramblers that really can go off-road in a proper way. They're not going to be 500 EXCs, but they're going to be able to keep up with your BMW F850 GS, no problems at all. So I think the capability has really gone under the radar for some of these scramblers. Not all of them. Some of them have no business still being off-road, but some of them are really quite capable. So you might surprise a few people that have got rigid thinking about what kind of bike belongs off-road when you turn up to that ride. So I'd love to know your thoughts. Do you think scramblers are low-key adventure bikes these days and you really can take them off-road? Or do you still see all the compromises as far too impractical and you'll be sticking with your adventure or dual sport motorcycle? Chuck your thoughts down below, and as always, don't forget to stay shiny side up.